Get out of my life, and never come back." Carlo Barbieri's furious voice thundered across the top floor of Chicago's most heavily guarded skyscraper as he shoved his own wife toward the waiting elevator. Dozens of armed bodyguards stood frozen in stunned silence, while the most feared mafia boss in America called his beautiful plus-size wife nothing but a burden and ordered her gone before midnight. Bianca never begged. She never cried. She simply walked away, with what little dignity remained. But 20 minutes later, masked assassins ambushed her convoy on a deserted highway. As one dying gunman coughed blood onto the pavement, he whispered words that shattered everything she believed. The boss never betrayed you. He was sacrificing himself, so you could escape. Chicago's skyline glittered beneath the winter night, like thousands of diamonds scattered across black velvet. But inside the Barbieri Tower penthouse, warmth had become something neither Carlo nor Bianca could feel. The grandfather clock near the marble staircase struck 11:30. Every person inside the penthouse instinctively glanced toward the sound. No one spoke. Not because they lacked something to say, because every instinct told them they were witnessing something impossible. Carlo Barbieri and his wife had never once raised their voices at each other in front of anyone. In 12 years of marriage, even during the bloodiest gang wars or the darkest financial crises, they had always stood together. Tonight was different. Bianca quietly placed a porcelain teacup onto its matching saucer. The delicate click echoed unnaturally through the enormous dining room. She looked toward her husband with the same gentle smile she had worn for years. "You're late for dinner." Carlo didn't answer. His expensive charcoal overcoat remained buttoned, despite the warmth inside. Snowflakes still clung to his shoulders. His dark eyes found hers. For one unbearable second, she thought she saw regret. Then it disappeared. "We need to talk." Something inside Bianca tightened. Not fear, recognition. Successful people often sensed disaster long before anyone else noticed the signs. For weeks, Carlo had been sleeping less, taking more phone calls alone, checking every security camera personally, watching windows instead of conversations. She had assumed another mafia family was preparing for war. She never imagined the battlefield would become their marriage. The household staff quietly disappeared. Senior bodyguards drifted toward the hallway. Everyone understood. Whatever was about to happen, no one wanted to witness it. Except none of them left completely. They remained just outside the dining room, pretending to work while listening through partially opened doors. Carlo slowly removed his leather gloves. "I've made a decision." Bianca folded her hands together. "What kind of decision?" "Our marriage ends tonight." Silence. Not dramatic silence. Not theatrical silence. The kind that steals oxygen from an entire room. She stared at him, waiting, expecting the explanation, the smile, the reassurance that this was another one of his impossible plans, requiring temporary deception. None came. Instead, he removed his wedding ring. The soft metallic sound against the dining table seemed louder than gunfire. "I want you out before midnight." One of the guards outside accidentally inhaled too sharply. Another quietly cursed under his breath. Bianca looked at the ring, then at Carlo. "I don't understand. You don't need to." His voice carried the cold authority that had sentenced countless enemies. "I've tolerated this marriage long enough." She blinked once. Only once. Years of discipline kept every other emotion hidden. Tolerated. Carlo looked away first. That hurt more than the words. "You've become a weakness." Still, she searched his face, searching for the man who had once spent 6 hours beside her hospital bed after she caught pneumonia. The man who secretly learned baking because she mentioned missing her grandmother's cinnamon bread. The man who remembered every anniversary, even when bullets were flying across Chicago. He was gone, or so it seemed. You always said, Bianca whispered, that love made us stronger. I was wrong. His answer arrived instantly. Too instantly. As though rehearsed. You slow me down. Another knife. You've gained weight. Another. You hide behind books and numbers, while real people fight wars. Another. I'm tired of pretending you're worthy of standing beside me. Every sentence landed with surgical precision, not random cruelty. Targeted. Designed to destroy. Only Carlo knew exactly where Bianca's deepest insecurities lived. He struck every one. The bodyguards outside could barely look at each other. None of this sounded real, yet Carlo's expression never cracked. Bianca slowly stood. She wasn't short, nor was she delicate. Her body carried soft curves she'd spent years learning not to apologize for. Tonight, for the first time in years, she suddenly felt enormous, heavy, unwanted. She wrapped her cardigan tighter around herself. If I've disappointed you, you have, then I'm sorry. Something flashed across Carlo's eyes. Pain, gone before anyone else could notice. Bianca noticed. She always noticed, which made everything even more confusing. You don't mean this. I've never meant anything more. Her breathing became slower, measured. She had spent years negotiating with bankers, politicians, and cartel accountants. Emotion never improved judgment. Facts did. Yet tonight, nothing made sense. No affair. No financial dispute. No betrayal. Just rejection. She nodded once. If this is truly what you want, it is. Then I won't embarrass either of us. She turned toward the staircase. I'll pack a suitcase. No. His voice stopped her. Take only what's already downstairs. She frowned. What? I had your luggage prepared. Now even the guards exchanged horrified looks. Prepared? How long had he planned this? Bianca stared at him. When? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. He didn't answer. Because the truthful answer, 3 days ago, would destroy everything. She gave one small nod. I see. No accusation. No screaming. No broken dishes. Just quiet heartbreak. She walked upstairs one final time. The master bedroom looked exactly as they'd left it that morning. His watch still rested beside hers. Her novel remained open on the nightstand. 2 coffee cups still sat near the balcony from breakfast. Evidence that only hours earlier, they had still been husband and wife. She closed the novel, picked up neither watch, neither photograph. Nothing. Downstairs, Carlo hadn't moved. His fists remained hidden inside his coat pockets. His fingernails dug so deeply into his palms that warm blood pooled silently between his fingers. No one noticed. Everyone watched Bianca. She descended carrying only one overnight bag, a life reduced to 20 pounds. She stopped before Carlo. I won't ask you to change your mind. He remained silent. I hope. Her voice nearly broke. She swallowed it. Whatever you're searching for. She forced one final smile. You find it. She reached toward her wedding ring. Twisted it free. Placed it beside his. 2 circles of gold. Separated by inches. Feeling worlds apart. Without another word, she walked toward the elevator. When the doors opened, Carlo finally looked directly at her again. Memories assaulted him. Their wedding, their first apartment, late-night pizza while building financial models, her laughter after beating him at chess. The way she unconsciously reached for his hand every time they crossed a street. He almost called her name. Almost. Instead, he forced himself to become the villain history would remember. Don't ever come back. The elevator doors closed. The soft, mechanical hum carried her away. The penthouse became impossibly quiet. 1 minute passed, then another. Finally, The oldest bodyguard stepped forward. His voice trembled. "Boss." Carlo didn't answer. "Why?" Carlo stared at the closed elevator doors. His face remained expressionless. Only after everyone looked away. A single tear rolled silently down the face of the most feared mafia boss in America. Far below the tower, 3 black SUVs carrying Bianca disappeared into Chicago's sleeping streets. None of the people inside realized they were already being watched. Snow drifted across Interstate 90 like pale ghosts chasing the convoy through the darkness. 3 armored SUVs moved in disciplined formation, one in front, Bianca's vehicle in the center, another behind. Inside the middle SUV, silence weighed heavier than the reinforced steel surrounding them. Bianca sat in the rear passenger seat, staring through the rain-speckled window as Chicago's skyline slowly disappeared behind her. The city where she had spent 12 years building both an empire and a marriage. Her overnight bag rested untouched beside her. She hadn't opened it. She already knew exactly what Carlo had packed. 2 changes of clothes. Her passport, cash, medicine, the little silver compass he'd given her on their 5th anniversary. Nothing accidental. Everything carefully chosen. That realization hurt almost as much as his words. If he had planned her departure so thoroughly, then perhaps he had truly planned to erase her from his life. The driver, Marco, kept both hands firmly on the steering wheel. Unlike most of Carlo's soldiers, Marco had served Bianca almost as long as he had served the boss. He glanced into the mirror several times before finally speaking. "Mrs. Barbieri," she offered a faint smile. "You don't have to call me that anymore." His jaw tightened. "I don't think I'll ever call you anything else." A painful silence followed. Finally, Bianca asked quietly, "Did he tell you where we're going?" Marco hesitated. "Yes. And? I was instructed not to say until we crossed the state line." She nodded. "Of course. Another secret." Another carefully arranged step she hadn't known existed. Outside, snow became heavier. Visibility dropped. The lead SUV slowed slightly. Marco instinctively increased the distance between the vehicles. Years of defensive driving had trained him to recognize danger hidden inside ordinary weather. His right thumb brushed the discreet emergency switch beneath the dashboard, a habit Carlo himself had insisted upon. Bianca noticed. "You think we're being followed?" "I always assume we are." She almost smiled. That sounded exactly like Carlo. For the first time since leaving the penthouse, she allowed herself to think about something other than the divorce. Her mind returned to dozens of strange moments over the past month. Carlo insisting she renew her passport immediately, ordering her to complete another tactical driving course, replacing every communication device in the penthouse, personally reviewing evacuation drills he normally delegated. At the time, she had assumed he was preparing for another gang war. Now, the memories refused to fit together. Why train her harder? Only to abandon her? The contradiction gnawed at her. Ahead, the lead SUV suddenly flashed its hazard lights twice. Marco frowned. "That's odd. What is it?" "Victor never uses that signal." Before Bianca could ask another question, the lead vehicle exploded. A deafening fireball erupted across the highway. Metal twisted through the air. The shockwave slammed into Marco's SUV like a freight train. "What?" The sentence never finished. Machine gun fire erupted from both sides of the road. The armored windows instantly fractured beneath dozens of armor-piercing rounds. "Ambush!" Marco shouted. He jerked the wheel violently. The SUV fishtailed across black ice before crashing through the guardrail and sliding down an embankment. The third vehicle behind them exploded seconds later. Orange flames swallowed the night. Bianca slammed against her seatbelt. Pain exploded across her shoulder. The world spun. Glass shattered. The engine screamed. Then, silence. Only the ticking of hot metal remained. Smoke drifted through the cracked windshield. Marco coughed violently. Blood ran down the side of his face. His left arm bent at an unnatural angle. Yet his first words weren't about himself. "Mrs. Barbieri, I'm here. Can you move?" She forced air into her lungs. "My shoulder." "Good." He ignored the injury. "If it hurts, you're alive." Another burst of automatic gunfire echoed above the embankment. Voices. Several men. Moving closer. Marco looked toward the darkness outside. His expression changed. Not fear. Acceptance. They found us. Bianca unbuckled herself. "We leave together." "No." She stared at him. "No?" Marco reached beneath his seat and pulled out a compact tactical backpack. Carlo's emergency pack. Inside were spare magazines, medical supplies, cash, a satellite phone, and a suppressed pistol. He handed it to her. "The boss said, if this day ever came." His breathing became ragged. "I'd know exactly what to do." Something inside Bianca froze. "What day?" Marco laughed bitterly. The day he prayed would never happen. Footsteps crunched through the snow above them. Closer now. Marco quickly unlocked the backpack. Beneath the ammunition lay a sealed envelope. Her name appeared across the front, in Carlo's handwriting. Bianca's fingers trembled. He knew? Marco looked away. He planned for every possibility. "What are you talking about?" Another explosion interrupted them. The assassins were descending the hill. Marco grabbed her wrist. His voice dropped. "They're not here because the boss divorced you." Her heartbeat stopped. "They're here because they think kidnapping you will destroy him." Bianca stared. "What?" "He sent you away." Marco swallowed blood. "Because staying beside him became a death sentence." The world tilted. "No, he couldn't tell you." "Why?" "Because you'd never leave." She opened the envelope. Only one handwritten sentence filled the page. "Forgive me for making you hate me. It is the only way I know to keep you alive." Her vision blurred. Outside, a flashlight swept across the wreckage. "They're here." Marco chambered around. "No." Bianca grabbed his arm. "We fight together." He smiled sadly. "Mrs. Barbieri, no. I've driven you to charity dinners." His finger rested on the trigger. "To hospitals. To your wedding anniversary. And now." His eyes softened. "I get to drive you one last time." Before she understood, Marco kicked open his door. He stepped into the snow, firing. The suppressor remained inside the vehicle. His rifle roared through the darkness. 3 attackers dropped immediately. The hillside erupted into chaos. "Target in the vehicle! Kill the driver! Don't lose the woman!" Marco deliberately ran uphill, away from the SUV, drawing every gun toward himself. Bianca screamed his name. He never looked back. Bullets ripped through his body. Still he kept firing. Another attacker fell. Then another. Finally, his rifle clicked empty. Dozens of rounds struck him almost simultaneously. Marco collapsed into the snow, motionless. The gunmen surrounded his body. One kicked away the rifle. "Search the SUV." Bianca closed her eyes. For exactly 3 seconds. Not to surrender. To remember. Years earlier, Carlo had insisted she complete advanced survival training despite her endless complaints. "I manage spreadsheets," she had laughed. "You manage my life," Carlo had answered. "If anyone ever comes for my empire," he had placed a pistol into her hands. "They'll come for you first." At the time, she thought he was being paranoid. Now, she understood. Every lesson. Every drill. Every exhausting weekend at hidden training compounds. He had never been teaching her to fight. He had been teaching her to survive long enough to think. She wiped away the tears. Fear became calculation. There were at least 8 attackers. Perhaps more. Too many for direct combat. Good. She had never relied on brute force. Slowly, she reached into the tactical backpack. Her fingers found smoke grenades, wire, emergency flares, a compact mirror, and Carlo's favorite phrase echoed inside her mind. When you're weaker, never attack the enemy. Attack his certainty. Bianca quietly smiled for the first time that night. All right, Carlo. She checked the pistol. Let's see whether I learned enough. The first assassin stepped onto the icy slope with complete confidence. His rifle remained pointed toward the wrecked SUV. She's trapped. Another man laughed. A fat woman with one pistol. This'll be easy. Bianca heard every word. She didn't feel insulted. She felt relieved. People who underestimated her almost always made the same mistake. They stopped thinking. She quietly opened the emergency kit. No wasted movement. No panic. Her breathing slowed until every sound became unnaturally clear. Wind, snow, boots crunching, radio chatter, the faint hiss of leaking fuel. Her eyes swept across the terrain once. Then she saw it. The overturned SUV rested against a cluster of frozen pine trees. Gasoline dripped steadily from the ruptured fuel tank, creating a thin, shimmering trail across the snow. 20 feet away, a damaged utility box leaned beside the highway guardrail. Broken electrical cables sparked intermittently. An ordinary person saw wreckage. Bianca saw a battlefield. Carlo had repeated the same lesson for years. The environment always chooses the winner before the trigger does. She smiled faintly. I remember. Slowly she removed a road flare from the backpack. Not to throw, to distract. The first flashlight beam swept across the driver's seat. Vehicle clear, another voice shouted. Search downhill. Bianca activated the flare and rolled it toward the opposite side of the embankment. Brilliant red light burst through the darkness. There! 3 gunmen immediately sprinted toward it. Exactly as expected. They weren't hunting. They were reacting. The remaining attackers spread apart, creating gaps. Perfect. Bianca slipped silently behind the wrecked SUV. Every step landed where the snow remained undisturbed by ice. No sound, no silhouette. Years ago, she had hated tactical training. She remembered collapsing after obstacle courses while Carlo stood nearby, refusing to let instructors lower the standard. I'll never need this. You don't know that. I'll always be with you. He had smiled sadly. I hope so. Now, his foresight was keeping her alive. A heavy-set gunman approached the driver's side. He glanced inside. Nothing. He stepped closer. Still nothing. He lowered his rifle. That single mistake cost him everything. Bianca looped a length of climbing cord around his throat from behind. She didn't try to overpower him. She simply twisted. His own momentum carried him backward. He clawed desperately at the wire, unable to breathe. Within seconds, he collapsed silently into the snow. She caught his rifle before it struck the ground. No unnecessary noise. 1 down. 7 remained. A radio crackled nearby. Status? The dead man's radio answered only static. Immediately confusion spread. Report. Why isn't Lewis answering? Bianca removed the earpiece, pressed the transmit button once, then released it. Nothing more. Silence frightened professionals far more than screaming. The team leader cursed. Split up. Exactly what she wanted. Divide certainty. Create isolation. Destroy coordination. Within minutes, every attacker believed someone else had located her. Nobody actually had. 500 miles away, New York Mafia boss Trent Falcone sat inside a private jet watching encrypted updates arrive on a secure tablet. His scarred fingers drummed impatiently against polished leather. No capture yet? His lieutenant shook his head. Our team says resistance was heavier than expected. Falcone frowned. From Carlo? No. Then who? The lieutenant hesitated. The woman. Falcone laughed. The wife. They've already lost several men. The laughter stopped. Impossible. Every intelligence report described Bianca as an accountant, a strategist, a financial genius, not a battlefield problem. Keep the line open. His voice hardened. I want her alive. He closed the tablet. For the first time all evening, something felt wrong. Back on the highway, Bianca crouched beneath the broken guardrail. Snow settled quietly across her dark coat. She studied the attackers instead of firing. Patterns. Everyone had patterns. One man constantly checked behind himself. Another always moved first. A third relied too heavily on night vision. Weaknesses revealed themselves through repetition. Finance had taught her that. So had chess. So had Carlo. The youngest gunman finally spotted movement. There! He fired instinctively. Bullets shattered frozen branches. The ricochets echoed across the hillside. Immediately 3 other assassins opened fire at each other. Muzzle flashes blinded them. Someone screamed, "Friendly fire!" exactly as Bianca intended. She used the chaos to relocate again. Another smoke grenade disappeared beneath an abandoned pickup truck near the road. Grey smoke exploded upward. Visibility vanished. The attackers shouted conflicting orders. Circle left. No, right. I saw her. No, you didn't. Discipline dissolved. Fear replaced command. Bianca remained perfectly calm. She didn't chase enemies. She let confusion exhaust them. One veteran finally recognized the trap. Stop moving. His voice cut through the panic. She's making us hunt shadows. Too late. Bianca fired once. The bullet struck a highway floodlight above them. Glass exploded. Darkness swallowed half the hillside. Now only their own flashlights betrayed their positions. She counted them. 1, 3, 5. Only 5 lights remained. Good. Progress. The veteran switched frequencies on his radio. Command, we need reinforcement. Static answered. Bianca had already disabled the relay antenna mounted inside the first SUV while they searched the wreck. No signal. No rescue. The veteran's confidence disappeared. He turned toward the remaining men. Find her now. Instead, a suppressed shot echoed softly. His flashlight dropped into the snow. 4 remained. Nearly 40 minutes had passed since Carlo forced Bianca to leave. Inside the Barbieri penthouse, the atmosphere had become unbearable. No music, no conversation, only phones ringing, maps unfolding, weapons loading, weapons loading. Every captain inside the organization had been summoned. Carlo stood before the panoramic windows overlooking Chicago. His untouched whiskey rested beside him. A young lieutenant hurried inside. Boss. No response. We lost contact with Marco's convoy. Silence. Another lieutenant entered moments later. Our surveillance teams disappeared near Interstate 90. Still silence. Only Carlo's jaw tightened. The room understood. Something had happened. He slowly closed his eyes. Not because he feared Bianca was dead. Because he knew exactly what this meant. Falcone had moved earlier than expected, which meant the trap inside Chicago would begin soon. One elderly capo finally asked the question everyone feared. Boss, should we bring Mrs. Barbieri back? Carlo answered without turning around. No, but if she comes back, his voice grew impossibly quiet. Everything I destroyed tonight becomes meaningless. Snow continued falling. Bianca finally reached the last surviving attacker. He lay against a fallen tree, bleeding from a shattered leg. His rifle rested several feet away. He looked up as she approached. Disbelief filled his eyes. You. He stared at the calm woman standing over him. You're supposed to be. He searched for the word. Helpless. Bianca lowered the pistol slightly. So were your assumptions. She searched his jacket. Phone. Satellite communicator. Encrypted access card. Excellent. The wounded assassin suddenly laughed. You still lose. Do I? Our boss already has yours. Cold spread through Bianca's chest. What did you say? He coughed blood. By now. He smiled through broken teeth. Falcone's men are already inside Barbieri Tower. The world stopped. No. Carlo. He hadn't sent her away because he stopped loving her. He had stayed behind. Alone. Waiting for an army. Bianca unlocked the assassin's phone using his fingerprint. Within seconds, encrypted operational files appeared. Target: Bianca Barbieri. Secondary objective: occupy Carlo Barbieri until extraction succeeds. Final directive: if capture fails, eliminate Carlo. Below the orders sat a voice recording. She pressed play. Trent Falcone's cold voice filled the snowy night. Carlo will never abandon his wife. Force him to choose. If he protects Bianca, we take Chicago. If he protects Chicago, we take Bianca. Either way, the king loses. Bianca slowly lowered the phone. Tears filled her eyes. Not from fear, from understanding. Every cruel word, every insult, every ounce of heartbreak Carlo inflicted had been chosen so she would survive. She looked back toward the distant glow of Chicago's skyline. For almost a full minute, she said nothing. Then she wiped away the last tear. No. The wounded assassin frowned. No, you made one mistake. She looked directly at him. You thought my husband was protecting someone who needed saving. She removed the magazine from her pistol, checked it, reinserted it with one smooth motion. You've been hunting the wrong Barbieri. She stood, started walking toward the abandoned SUV. The assassin called after her. Where are you going? She didn't even slow down. I'm going home. She climbed into the damaged vehicle, started the engine. Against every mechanical probability, it roared to life. As the headlights pierced the falling snow, Bianca gripped the steering wheel with complete certainty. For 12 years, the underworld had believed Carlo Barbieri built Chicago's strongest empire. Tonight, they were about to discover who had truly designed it. The damaged SUV sped toward downtown Chicago, its cracked windshield collecting fresh snow, as Bianca drove with one hand and studied Falcone's encrypted phone with the other. Most people would have seen meaningless strings of numbers. Bianca saw a conversation. Every criminal organization eventually revealed itself through patterns: money, timing, movement. Nothing lied longer than people. Nothing told the truth more consistently than logistics. Her fingers moved across the screen with astonishing speed. Layer after layer of encryption disappeared. She recognized the architecture immediately. Interesting. Falcone hadn't created this system. He had stolen pieces of hers. Years ago, Bianca had designed dozens of financial encryption protocols for shell corporations protecting Barbieri assets. One obsolete version contained a hidden mathematical shortcut known only to 3 people: herself, Carlo, and the programmer who had died 6 years earlier. Falcone's hackers had copied the algorithm without ever discovering its weakness. Within 30 seconds, the phone unlocked completely. Maps, building schematics, live radio frequencies, assault assignments. Every enemy position inside Barbieri Tower appeared on the display. Bianca's expression hardened. There you are. Red markers filled almost every floor. More than 60 attackers, far more than Carlo's remaining guards. This had never been intended as a raid. It was an execution. Inside Barbieri Tower, the war had already begun. Automatic gunfire echoed through marble corridors. Sprinklers activated across 3 floors. Smoke rolled through executive offices. Several elevators had been disabled. Emergency lighting painted everything crimson. Carlo stood inside the executive conference room with only 8 surviving bodyguards. A blood-stained tactical map covered the enormous walnut table. "They're not pushing toward the vault." One captain frowned. "They're surrounding this floor." Carlo nodded. "They're not after money." Another explosion shook the building. Glass rained across the conference room. One lieutenant staggered to the window. "They've reached the east stairwell." Carlo calmly inserted another magazine into his pistol. "They're exactly where I expected." Nobody understood. Not yet. For nearly an hour, Carlo had deliberately refused every opportunity to escape. He had abandoned stronger defensive positions, ignored safer tunnels, allowed Falcone's men to compress the battlefield. One young guard finally asked, "Boss, why aren't we retreating?" Carlo looked toward the hidden elevator behind the library wall. The elevator Bianca herself had designed years earlier. The only escape route Falcone didn't know existed. Empty, exactly as planned. "If they're surrounding me," he quietly answered, "then they're not searching for her." Bianca exited the highway. Downtown Chicago rose before her. Towering steel, frozen river, flashing emergency lights. Helicopters circled overhead. Police scanners buzzed across stolen frequencies. The city believed terrorists had attacked the financial district. No one realized 2 mafia empires were quietly deciding America's criminal future. She turned sharply into an underground parking structure 6 blocks away. The entrance looked abandoned. Concrete stained by decades of neglect. Broken fluorescent lights flickered overhead. She parked beside an old maintenance door. No security cameras. Exactly as intended. Years earlier, architects had proposed sealing this forgotten utility corridor during renovations. Bianca refused. She invented an accounting justification for preserving it. Carlo had laughed. "We'll never use this tunnel." She smiled while signing the construction approval. "I don't build for today." She placed her palm against the rusted steel panel. Hidden beneath loose concrete, her fingertips found a recessed biometric scanner disguised as damaged wiring. Green light. Access granted. The heavy door unlocked. She disappeared beneath the city. The maintenance tunnel stretched beneath several downtown blocks. Cold air carried the smell of damp concrete and machine oil. Emergency generators hummed somewhere beyond the darkness. Bianca walked quickly, confidently. Every intersection felt familiar. She had personally approved every blueprint, every ventilation shaft, every maintenance hatch. Nobody, not even most Barbieri captains, knew the complete underground network. Because she had divided the knowledge. Each contractor built only one section. Only Bianca had ever seen the complete design. She reached a reinforced steel ladder, climbed 4 stories, opened another concealed hatch. She emerged inside an unused electrical maintenance room beneath Barbieri Tower, exactly where she intended. No alarms sounded, because she had designed those too. Above her, Falcone's assault teams continued sweeping the building. Their commander checked his tactical tablet. No movement below level 12. Excellent. Continue upward. He never realized the system feeding his location data had quietly changed. Bianca connected a portable device from Carlo's emergency backpack into the maintenance terminal. The old operating system greeted her instantly. She almost laughed. Carlo had never allowed anyone to replace her original software, even after 12 years. Still stubborn, her fingers danced across the keyboard. Password. She typed 6 simple words. Always trust Bianca before yourself. Access granted. Every monitor illuminated. Every security feed returned. Every electronic lock answered her command. The building became hers again. She disabled the external surveillance system, locked 6 emergency exits, opened 3 maintenance corridors, redirected every elevator. Then, she shut off the lights. The entire skyscraper plunged into darkness. Instantly, confusion exploded across every radio frequency. What happened? I've lost visual. Generator failure. Negative. My team can't see. Bianca quietly removed her headset. Chaos no longer required her assistance. Carlo immediately recognized the blackout. His eyes lifted toward the ceiling. No ordinary power failure behaved like this. Not floor by floor. Not circuit by circuit. Someone was controlling the building. One captain whispered, "Boss, did we do that?" Carlo slowly closed his eyes. A memory surfaced. Their first year of marriage. Bianca insisting that every emergency system require 3 independent authorization paths. What if someone compromises the main server? Carlo had laughed. Who could possibly outsmart you? She smiled. I don't plan for intelligent enemies. What do you plan for? The impossible. His breathing caught. Impossible. Only one person could still control this building after total communications failure. No. For the first time that night, fear appeared in Carlo's face. Not for himself. For her. Bianca. Falcone stood inside the executive lobby on the 38th floor. Darkness irritated him. Nothing more. He still believed victory inevitable. Restore the lights. His technician shook his head. We can't. Why? Someone changed route authorization. Falcone frowned. Who? I don't know. Then another report arrived. Team 7 isn't responding. Seconds later, neither is Team 9. Another voice. Boss. Someone's moving through the building. Falcone smiled coldly. Carlo. The technician looked uncertain. No. The movement pattern doesn't match him. Falcone turned slowly. What do you mean? The technician enlarged the building map. Blue dots represented Falcone's soldiers. One by one, they disappeared. Not in groups, individually. Always after entering areas where security cameras had already gone offline. No gunfire. No alarms. Just silence. Falcone's smile disappeared. Meanwhile, Bianca moved through the maintenance corridors almost invisibly. She never rushed. She never chased. Every step had already been planned years before anyone imagined this battle. One soldier rounded a corner, finding only darkness. He raised his flashlight. The beam reflected from a polished ventilation duct. His own shadow startled him. He turned instinctively. The floor beneath him gave way. Not because Bianca attacked, because she quietly released the maintenance latch securing the access grate. He crashed 1 level below. Unconscious. Another team entered a server room. The reinforced security doors suddenly locked behind them. Bianca disabled the release mechanism remotely. 4 elite gunmen trapped themselves. A third patrol reached an emergency stairwell. Smoke poured downward. They retreated immediately, straight into another squad. Friendly gunfire erupted. The building itself had become her weapon. Carlo had once ruled Chicago through force. Bianca ruled architecture, information, probability. Every decision Falcone's soldiers made carried them exactly where she wanted. By midnight, more than half the invading force had already been neutralized. Most had never even seen her face. Deep inside the executive floor, Carlo finally ran out of ammunition. His final bodyguard collapsed beside the conference room entrance. The door burst inward. Falcone entered slowly, elegant, untouched, smiling. Around him stood more than a dozen remaining soldiers. So, Falcone admired the bloodied mafia boss. You really expected to stop me with 8 men? Carlo dropped the empty pistol. You came personally. I wanted to watch you lose. Falcone stepped closer. Where is she? Carlo smiled. The same calm smile Bianca loved. Safe. Falcone punched him hard across the face. Blood struck polished marble. Again. 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 Still. Carlo only laughed, because in his heart, Bianca was already somewhere beyond Falcone's reach, exactly where she belonged. He never imagined the queen had already returned to her kingdom. Blood dripped steadily from Carlo Barbieri's split lip onto the polished marble floor. His expensive black suit had become little more than torn fabric soaked in crimson. One eye was swollen, nearly shut. His wrists were secured behind a reinforced steel support column with heavy industrial restraints. Every breath sent sharp pain through his ribs. Yet when Trent Falcone stood before him, Carlo still smiled. Not out of arrogance, out of peace, because he believed Bianca was alive. Somewhere far away. Safe. That belief made every broken bone worthwhile. Falcone studied him with growing irritation. I've broken stronger men than you. Carlo said nothing. Falcone circled him slowly. You know what fascinates me? Still silence. I spent years studying your empire. He picked up Carlo's discarded wedding ring from the conference table. You had more money. He turned the ring between his fingers. More soldiers. He tossed it onto the floor. More political influence. Another slow step. And yet, he stopped directly in front of Carlo. The only thing I ever truly envied, his expression darkened, was the way your wife looked at you. For the first time, Carlo's smile faded. Falcone noticed. There he is. There. The mafia boss of New York chuckled softly. I finally found the wound. He leaned close. You should have brought her to me. Carlo answered quietly. You couldn't afford her. Falcone laughed. No, I couldn't buy her. His eyes narrowed. So I decided to steal her. Without warning, his fist slammed into Carlo's jaw. The crack echoed through the ruined boardroom. Carlo's head snapped sideways. Blood splattered across shattered glass. Still, he refused to cry out. One lieutenant approached Falcone nervously. Boss, what? We've lost contact with every team below level 30. Falcone didn't even look at him. They're delayed. It's more than that. Another radio crackled. Team 4 gone. Seconds later, Team 6 isn't responding. Then, security cameras have been completely compromised. Falcone's patience began to crack. Restore the system. We can't. Find whoever is doing this. The technician swallowed. We can't find anyone. Carlo quietly laughed. Falcone turned sharply. What? Carlo looked directly into his eyes. You still don't understand. His voice remained calm, despite the blood filling his mouth. Do you? Falcone stepped closer. What don't I understand? You've been fighting the wrong person all night. 3 floors below, Bianca walked silently through the executive maintenance corridor. Emergency lighting cast long red shadows across concrete walls. She wasn't rushing. The building was no longer a battlefield. It was a chessboard. Every surviving enemy had already been moved exactly where she wanted them. She reached a concealed security room. Inside, 6 massive electrical panels controlled every automated lock inside Barbieri Tower. She entered a final authorization code. Immediately, every blast door on the executive level sealed shut. Heavy steel barriers descended from the ceiling. Escape routes disappeared. Falcone's remaining soldiers suddenly found themselves trapped inside isolated sections of the building. Confused shouting erupted through the radios. We're locked in! Door won't open! Who closed Sector C? Bianca calmly disconnected the communication server. Silence. Complete. Perfect silence. She holstered her pistol. For the first time since the ambush, she spoke aloud. Checkmate begins. Back inside the boardroom, Falcone finally lost patience. He drew a polished silver pistol, placed it gently against Carlo's forehead. I'll ask once more. Where is Bianca? Carlo looked at the weapon, then back into Falcone's eyes. Beyond your reach. Falcone sighed. Pity. He thumbed back the hammer. You really were one of the great kings. Carlo closed his eyes. Not in surrender, in gratitude. His final thought wasn't of power, or revenge, or the empire. It was Bianca smiling across the breakfast table while teasing him for burning pancakes on Sunday mornings. If that memory became his last, he could accept death. Falcone tightened his finger on the trigger. Goodbye. A single gunshot exploded through the darkness. Falcone blinked, confused. He was still alive. Then agony erupted through his right leg. The bullet had shattered his knee. He screamed. Collapsed sideways. His pistol skidded across the marble floor. Every surviving soldier spun toward the sound. A calm, feminine voice echoed from the shadows. You're aiming at the wrong king. Everyone froze. Slowly, Bianca stepped into the emergency light. Snow still clung to her dark coat. A faint streak of dried blood crossed one cheek. Her pistol remained perfectly steady. Her breathing never changed. She looked neither frightened nor angry, only certain. Carlo's remaining eye widened. Impossible. No, he whispered. Bianca. She looked at him. For one brief heartbeat, the battlefield disappeared. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Everything Carlo had tried to say with cruelty, she had finally understood. Falcone stared at her in disbelief. You? His voice trembled with genuine confusion. You were supposed to run. I was. You were supposed to hide. I considered it. You came back. I came home. Silence filled the room. Then Falcone began laughing. Long, hard, almost hysterically. So. He wiped blood from his mouth. The Queen finally decided to play. Bianca tilted her head slightly. No. Her voice remained perfectly calm. You've misunderstood from the beginning. She took one slow step forward. You believed you were fighting my husband. Another step. You studied his soldiers. Another. You bribed his politicians. Another. You hacked his companies. She stopped, raised the pistol. You never realized. Falcone's laughter faded. The empire you wanted to steal, Bianca's eyes never left his, was designed by me. The room became deathly still. Even Carlo stared, not because he doubted her, because he finally understood something he'd missed for years. He had always known Bianca was brilliant. Tonight, the entire underworld was learning exactly how brilliant. Falcone forced himself upright, despite his shattered knee. You expect me to believe, he laughed weakly, that you built Chicago. I built the part nobody could see. She gestured toward the tower surrounding them. The shell corporations, the offshore networks, the emergency infrastructure, the encrypted communication system, the hidden tunnels, the financial architecture. Her expression never changed. You've spent years trying to destroy my husband's empire. She smiled faintly. You never realized. You were standing inside mine. Falcone suddenly lunged toward the fallen pistol, exactly as Bianca expected. She didn't shoot him again. Instead, she fired once into the marble floor beside him. The ricochet shattered a large glass conference wall. Thousands of razor-sharp fragments exploded across the room. Falcone instinctively threw himself sideways, directly toward Carlo, exactly where Bianca wanted him. Carlo's restraints had already been weakened, not by accident. Moments earlier, while Falcone spoke, Bianca had quietly fired a nearly invisible shot through the steel locking pin, securing the restraint behind Carlo's wrists. The impact hadn't broken it, only cracked it. Now, as Falcone collided against him, the weakened restraint snapped completely. Carlo's hands came free. Falcone realized his mistake 1 second too late. Carlo seized a jagged shard of tempered glass lying beside his feet. Falcone reached for his pistol. Too slow. Carlo drove the shard deep into Falcone's throat. The New York Mafia boss staggered backward, his hands desperately pressed against the wound. Blood poured between his fingers. He looked first at Carlo, then at Bianca. Understanding finally reached him. Not defeat. Truth. He hadn't been beaten by stronger soldiers. He had been beaten by two people who trusted each other completely. Falcone tried to speak. No words came. Seconds later, he collapsed onto the marble floor. Motionless. Silence. Complete silence. Then, throughout the tower, one by one, locked security doors unlocked. Emergency lights returned. Communications reactivated. The war was over. Carlo remained standing only because Bianca reached him before he could fall. She gently wrapped one arm around his waist. He looked at her with exhausted disbelief. "I told you," his voice cracked, "to leave." She smiled through tears. "I know. You disobeyed me. I've been doing that for 12 years. Despite everything. Despite the blood. Despite the pain." Carlo laughed. A real laugh. The first in many hours. He rested his forehead against hers. "I thought I lost you." Bianca closed her eyes. "You almost did." She gently took his trembling hand. "But next time," she squeezed it softly. "Trust me enough to let me stand beside you before you decide to die for me." Outside, the first light of dawn slowly began rising over Chicago. For several long seconds, no one moved. The silence inside the shattered boardroom felt almost sacred. Broken glass glittered beneath the first pale rays of dawn, creeping through the fractured windows of Barbieri Tower. Trent Falcone's body lay motionless where it had fallen. The man who had spent 15 years terrorizing the East Coast, who had started wars without hesitation, who believed every person could eventually be broken through fear, had lost not because someone was more ruthless. He had lost because he never understood something far stronger than fear. Trust. Bianca continued supporting Carlo's weight as the surviving Barbieri soldiers slowly entered the boardroom. They stopped immediately. Every veteran present had witnessed impossible things throughout decades of organized crime. Tonight surpassed all of them. No one looked at Falcone. Every pair of eyes rested on Bianca. Not with surprise, with realization. Captain Lorenzo, the oldest surviving commander in the Barbieri organization, removed his blood-stained cap. Without speaking, he lowered his head toward Bianca. One by one, every surviving soldier followed. No order had been given. Respect needed none. Bianca looked uncomfortable. "Please," her voice remained gentle despite everything. "Stand." No one moved. Carlo noticed. For years these men had obeyed him because they feared disappointing him. Today, they bowed because they admired someone else. He had never been prouder. 2 hours later, emergency crews officially reported the attack as an explosion caused by organized criminal violence. The public would never know the truth. Governments preferred myths. The underworld preferred silence. Inside the private medical wing beneath Barbieri Tower, doctors stitched Carlo's wounds while Bianca sat beside his bed, refusing to leave. She still wore the same dark coat, stained with dried blood and melted snow. Someone had offered her clean clothes. She declined. The chair beside Carlo's bed had become the safest place in the world. When the physician finally finished wrapping Carlo's ribs, he quietly excused himself. The room became peaceful again. Neither husband nor wife spoke immediately. After everything they had survived, words suddenly felt too small. Carlo reached toward the bedside table. His wedding ring rested there inside a small plastic evidence tray, the same ring he had removed only hours earlier. He stared at it for a long time. I almost destroyed the best thing in my life. Bianca smiled faintly. You almost protected it. He shook his head. No, I should have trusted you. His voice carried none of the authority that ruled Chicago, only honesty. I convinced myself that loving you meant carrying every burden alone. Bianca gently intertwined her fingers with his. And I convinced myself, she looked down at their joined hands, that loving you meant letting you carry them. A soft laugh escaped Carlo. We're both terrible at this. We're learning. He looked into her eyes. I called you a burden. I know. I never believed it. I know. I packed your suitcase 3 days before tonight. I know. Carlo frowned. You knew. She smiled through tired eyes. I recognized the way my clothes were folded. He blinked. You noticed that? You've never folded sweaters correctly, despite cracked ribs, despite bruises covering half his body. Carlo laughed so hard the doctor had to reopen the door to make sure nothing was wrong. Bianca laughed with him, not because anything about the night had been funny, because sometimes surviving together left only one possible response. Relief. Over the following weeks, Chicago changed. Falcone's criminal empire collapsed almost overnight. Without its leader, rival factions turned against one another. Federal agencies quietly celebrated. Competing mafia families quickly requested peace negotiations. No one wanted another war, especially not against the Barbieris. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some claimed Carlo defeated 50 men alone. Others insisted mysterious government agents intervened. A few whispered about a ghost moving through Barbieri Tower before the lights failed. Only those truly connected to organized crime knew the truth. The Queen had finally revealed herself. 3 weeks later, representatives from nearly every mafia family in America gathered inside the restored Grand Ballroom of Barbieri Tower. The event had officially been announced as a celebration of peace. Unofficially, everyone wanted to see the woman who had outplayed Trent Falcone. Capos from Las Vegas, bosses from Miami, old families from Boston, delegations from Detroit, politicians, business executives, union leaders, even rivals who had once dreamed of replacing Carlo accepted the invitation. Conversations filled the enormous hall. Speculation drifted between crystal chandeliers and polished marble columns. Will Carlo demand tribute? They say Falcone begged. I heard she hacked an entire military network. No, another man quietly corrected. They say she never fired more than a handful of bullets. And the ballroom doors opened. Silence spread naturally. Carlo entered first. His injuries had mostly healed, though a faint scar remained beneath one eye. Beside him walked Bianca. She wore a simple ivory gown. No extravagant jewelry. No unnecessary display of wealth. She looked exactly as she always had. Gentle, graceful, soft. Only now. Everyone understood that appearances had deceived them. Carlo escorted Bianca to the center of the ballroom. Hundreds of powerful men watched, waiting. He turned toward the assembled leaders. For years, his voice carried easily across the silent room. Many of you believed I built the strongest empire in Chicago. No one interrupted. Carlo reached slowly toward his right hand. Upon his finger rested the Barbieri signet ring. the oldest symbol of absolute authority within his organization. For generations, it had passed only from one mafia boss to the next, never to a wife. Never to anyone outside direct succession. Carlo removed it. Several capos exchanged surprised glances. He turned toward Bianca. She looked confused. "Carlo?" He gently took her hand. "I spent years believing leadership meant standing in front of everyone else." His voice softened. "I was wrong." He placed the heavy signet ring into her palm. "I built an empire." He paused. His eyes never left hers. "My wife made it impossible to destroy." The ballroom became perfectly still. No applause. No whispers. Only silence. Then, Lorenzo stood. He placed his fist over his heart and bowed deeply toward Bianca. Another capo stood, then another, then another. Within seconds, every single leader inside the ballroom rose to their feet. Old enemies, former rivals, men who had spent entire careers refusing to bow before anyone. One after another, they lowered their heads, not because Carlo ordered them. He hadn't. Not because tradition demanded it. It didn't. They bowed because respect cannot be commanded, only earned. Bianca's eyes filled with tears. Not tears of victory, not tears of pride. Tears of gratitude. She looked toward Carlo. "You don't have to give me your throne." He smiled. "I'm not." He gently closed her fingers around the ring. "I'm reminding everyone." His forehead rested lightly against hers. "That there was never a throne without you." The ballroom remained silent. Many of the hardened men present suddenly found the chandeliers unusually interesting. Others quietly cleared their throats. No one mentioned the moisture gathering in a few aging eyes. Outside, morning sunlight spread across Chicago. The city continued waking, unaware that history had quietly changed during the night. From that day forward, people no longer introduced Bianca Barbieri as merely the mafia boss's wife. They spoke her name with the same respect reserved for the greatest strategists the underworld had ever known. She became known as the Queen of the Chicago Mafia, the brilliant woman who defeated the most dangerous crime lord in New York, the invisible architect who transformed intelligence into the strongest weapon an empire could possess, the wife who returned when every rational person would have fled, and the queen who proved that the strongest person in any kingdom is not always the one wearing the crown. Sometimes, it is the one standing beside the king, quietly ensuring the kingdom can never fall.